Well, rent for a two-bedroom apartment in Boise has increased by 20% since last year. Now, that's according to a report done by Apartment Guide. Now, I'll introduce you to three people who, because of rent prices, are struggling to call Boise home.
In the past 2 years, if we track the trend of the housing prices, where they've gone up dramatically.
For renters, the average price in Boise increased by just over 14% for a one-bedroom apartment, according to Apartment Guide's 2019 annual report. And those increases are affecting people across Boise. People like Katie Branton living in a one-bedroom apartment near Boise State.
I almost didn't take it because it's a little gross, but I needed it, so here we are.
Now, according to financial experts like Jacob Williams with the Helmstar Group, renters and buyers should be spending around 30% of their monthly income on their housing.
So that number is just a rule of thumb or an average.
This is recommended so you have money to save and pay other bills.
It also takes into account a lot of the averages on, how much does somebody spend for, for their recreation, for their for eating out, for their groceries.
Katie is paying $750 for her apartment, which is more than the recommended 30% of her monthly income on rent.
I'd say probably 40%, not quite 50.
She's working two jobs to afford to live in the city.
Full-time, I work at a hotel downtown. I do our front desk stuff at nighttime, and I've been doing that for about 5 years now. And then during the day, I work with our theater companies in town and I paint our scenery.
I literally sat down and looked at it, and it's about 34% right now.
That's Emily Pullman. She looked for 8 months and found this one-bedroom apartment for $875 a month. She also got a second job to pay the bills.
I'm a full-time administrative professional at a structural engineering firm, 40 hours a week, and then I go to grad school part-time, a couple nights a weekend. Then I have a second job bartending at a pizza place a few nights a week.
She says the price of apartments isn't the only issue.
I had contacted the landlord within 10 minutes, gotten her my paperwork, and she said I was the first person to get to her, and by the end of the day she had 30 plus applications.
Part of the problem in Boise is the very low apartment vacancy rate, with it hovering around 2% for the past few years. So think supply and demand. If there's a demand for it and a low supply, prices increase. Now, an average one-bedroom apartment in Boise will cost you a little more than $1,000, while a two-bedroom runs for around $1,300. That's all according to the Apartment Guide's 2019 annual rent report.
They should be earning, around about $45,000 to $50,000 to be able to, to comfortably pay for that, and then also be able to, save a little bit for emergency reserves, do some other things at the same time.
As for that 30% threshold, it's not an easy one to meet in a city with increasing rent. Mary Kemp is another person paying more than the recommended amount.
Starting on May 1st, we're going to be looking at close to 60% of our income.
She also works full-time.
I do. I work for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network.
And lives with her husband in a two-bedroom apartment on the southeast side of the city.
On April, we are paying $1,200, and starting on May 1st, it will go up to about $1,450 a month once you add in all of the additional fees that have to be paid.
Mary sees a big difference from just a year ago when she lived in the North End.
We lived in the North End at that time in a 3-bedroom house with a big yard, and we will now be paying almost as much here as we were paying living in that home.
And things may not be changing soon for people wanting to live in Boise. With an influx of people and a low supply of apartments, this could force people to spend even more on rising rent prices. Now, according to Boise Regional Realtors, the median sales price of homes in the city of Trees jumped nearly 11% since March of just last year. So let's take a look at the median sales price over the last 3 years in Boise. In March 2017, an existing home median sales price was $233,000 in 1 year. That increased to $290,000. Then in March of this year, that same house would have a sales price of $309,000. Now, the Boise Regional Realtors annual report for last year states that 2018 was another year of record low inventory for homes across all of Ada County, meaning this problem isn't just affecting Boise, but the entire county. Joey Prechtel, Idaho's News Channel 7.